All right. Thank you everyone for coming. So the topic of this panel is something that I think is kind of heady and really interesting, which is as we are working with Web3 native tools, we have the ability to, or at least the tool set now, to rebuild the economy so that it measures and allocates value in sort of fundamentally new ways. And so the
Could you just move this side, please?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're out
I should go
recording.
Oh, no. Okay.
Of the speaker.
I want to be recorded. Okay. So the idea here is that we I can just stand. I can just So we now have the tools, right, with Web3 to rebuild the way that we measure value and the way that we allocate resources in sort of fundamentally new ways. And the focus of this panel is really, how do Web3 and existing capitalist structures coexist, right? Where are we really rebuilding like very new types of incentive mechanisms that really do go after value and go after these like really deep social questions in very different new ways that are hopefully better than what came before Web3. And then what are places in which we are rebuilding the sort of existing capitalist structures, and where is that a problem, and sort of why is that happening, right? And so we have this giant panel of experts in this huge range of different topics, right, to really pick that apart from a bunch of different directions. So what I was thinking we could do first is could we just move starting there and coming toward me. Could you introduce yourself and say pick a project or company that you are affiliated with, and just say kind of quickly what you do, and what incentives are you responding to?
Sure. Okay, so Nick Alexander. So I am head of partnerships and policy at Thallo, and Thallo is building an on-chain marketplace for carbon credits. So my experience is kind of restricted to the voluntary carbon market. What I actually do on a day-to-day basis is I speak to project developers. So people in Brazil who trying to protect the rainforest, trying to push forward SDGs and so forth. And I try to translate to them or communicate to them the benefits of Web3. The difficulty there, I find, is that a lot of this is abstract. We cannot point to kind of concrete real-world benefits yet, like they're not really interested in that. They have tough jobs, they have tough projects and so forth. And so one of the things I think is most important in Web3 is really pointing to tangible, concrete results that we can show them so as to convince them. And so just by way of example, one of the things that we talk about is, say, royalties in the carbon market, such that project developers can, for the first time, access the secondary market. So the secondary market for carbon credits is something that they've never had access to. And showing that that can provide financing to further develop projects is a real-world example of how Web3 can change their lives.
And how does that compare to the closest non-Web3 analog that you're like replacing effectively?
So the closest non-Web3 analog would be off-chain marketplaces, right, which is essentially only secondary sales. So this is the traders, the brokers who do nothing with regards to the climate, don't actually drive any project implementation whatsoever, and then they take these huge margins on the secondary sales because they're the ones with connections to the buy-side companies in the West who are happy to pay for sustainability outcomes. And so one of our missions at Thallo is to connect the project developers with the buy-side on-chain.
Awesome. Lucia?
Hi, I'm Lucia, and I'm the founder of Emerge and the co-founder of the Eternals, and my work is literally this. My company builds projects at the convergence of, sustainable development and intelligent Web3, but through financial instruments. So we really are there to reimagine what those financial instruments might look like. We've experimented a fair bit with NFTs by decoupling the idea that an NFT has to be a digital twin and representative of real-world assets, and instead sort of transitioned the underlying utility to engagement and, let's say, organizing more social movements, and have the outcome of the value of that instrument be more tied to how much you've actually done in favor of a particular social movement like rainforest protection. And another thing we've played with a fair bit is, for example, changing the nature of like a futures-based financial instrument so that you can predict or place bets on, for example, the amount of blank that a plant will contribute to the pharma industry, so that essentially you hedge a bet on how long that plant will live, so that it's more in your interest, financial interest for that plant to live longer, because you're essentially betting on the fact fact that it needs to stay up and alive to render a specific amount of ingredients. And so we basically play around with like the financial instruments of Web 2, but we reimagine what that, like a regenerative version of that underlying economic or social incentive would be in order for us to change what that instrument will have as an outcome. And I think the key question that was really inspiring to start thinking about this at a much more fundamental level was this idea that so far we've seen a lot of impact projects focus on impact as an outcome, which is great, but my interest was more in understanding how impact itself can become the investable asset class rather than the outcome of an investment class.
Awesome. So you are representing rainforests with your NFTs, but not like geographically, right?
Correct.
You're representing like the interest and engagement in conservation of the rainforest.
Yes. So essentially, the underlying value, it's responsive to your engagement. So if you're donating to our partner who's working with 9 local and indigenous communities, if you're going to their events and their weekly updates, if you're going to our events which teach you about rainforest science and biodiversity, if you are playing our game, if you're meditating with the asset, because it's connected in real time to the sounds of the rainforest. So if you turn sound on and you meditate with it, like anything that really fuels your connection with rainforest protection, that engagement data is actually causing the NFT in your wallet to evolve. And also, if you stop engaging with it, it regresses. So it's a real-time measure of your personal impact in rainforest protection. But also, as you sort of go through metamorphosis, it comes with more community benefits. So let's say you're in a secondary market. If you sell it in state 1, the market will set a price X, but if you've evolved it and it becomes visually more complex and also comes with more benefits, theoretically, according to a capitalistic driver, that's worth more. And so it starts to influence the actual value and performance in a secondary market, even though it's a traditional, let's say, Web3 financial instrument. The underlying utility has now been reimagined to be more aligned with the reason we're all here today, right?
Awesome. Thanks. Alex?
Alex Altman, the co-founder and COO of Seal Storage Technology.
I think so.
Yeah? Okay. It's a little quiet. Co-founder and COO of Seal Storage Technology. We're a decentralized storage provider built on top of Filecoin. We've specifically engaged as a company to try and commercialize and propagate decentralized storage within and replace essentially the Web 2 storage facilities. So we found the most success working with universities and research institutions, scientific institutions, things like that. And in terms of, I guess who our closest analog to in Web 2, it's probably a division of Amazon, which is a, great competitor, called Amazon Glacier, which is their archival storage system, a lot of which is actually stored on physical tape and is not connected to the internet. So a lot of the success that we've had with particular universities, as well as people who are doing a lot of research and heavy data analytics on top of large-scale data sets, if they want to run some form of experiment or some form of analysis on top of their data, they actually need to go and get it off of tape and then put it onto the web and then run their experiments and then put it back onto tape, which is very, very expensive and it's very time consuming. So it's actually very limiting in their ability to analyze the data that they collect. And when you're dealing with really large scale problems and many petabyte data sets, you want to be able to run all sorts of different analytics on those to be able to try to solve large scale problems. But if you're kind of held back by the monetary aspect of it, it becomes very difficult. You have to pick your spots to be able to analyze it. So when we actually take these data sets off of, it's actually closer to Web 1, not even Web 2. When we take it off of tape and we actually bring it to an online state, people can run significantly more analytics on top of it and actually answer more difficult questions because they have ability to be wrong, essentially. Whereas on tape, you kind of get 1 or 2 shots a year, and if you mess up one, then you have to wait next year to run another sort of analytics on top.
It's like Web 0.5. It's like if it's stored on tape,
old.
right?
It's like a VCR.
It's like Web 0.1 is stored on vacuum tubes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I do think Seal, right, has been really forward-thinking, right, in engaging with the scientific community, like you were saying, to like find super, super useful data sets and store them on Filecoin and sort of show the value there, which I think like dovetails very much with Filecoin Plus, right, which is this like impact evaluator for useful data, right? Which I know like Seal participates in quite a lot. I don't know. Is that sort of part of the incentive puzzle that you as you sort of see it?
Yeah, I think when you look at Web 2 and you look at other types of platforms that have allowed monetization on behalf of creators or users, essentially, think of like a Spotify or YouTube or anything like that actually rewards people who are creating something and giving it to people on the platform. For us, we know what the incentives are for Filecoin. It's very transparent. So we feel comfortable in actually kind of getting in the trenches and getting dirty with these universities and being able to figure out what the needs are and building different things. And as I said before, we have the ability to fail in a certain sense. Where if we build something and it doesn't work, or the university tries something and it doesn't work, or they try an experiment and it doesn't work, we still know where the incentives are. So we have comfort in our ability to forecast out what kind of revenue we're going to have. So it allows us to do these types of things. It also allows us to bring on these data sets because we know exactly what's going to happen. So we're comfortable with that.
Awesome. Lauren, tell us about Giveth.
Hi, I'm Lauren Luce. I'm a product lead at Giveth, and I also lead our comms team. Giveth is a DAO that's really focused on changing the way that we create and fund public goods. So public goods are things like roads that we all rely on to go from point A to point B, or things like community gardens, which anybody could access. They're goods and services that are non-excludable and non-rivalrous. Everybody can access them equally without needing to purchase a ticket, and also can benefit from them. Like, I can enjoy it while you enjoy it. Like, I can enjoy the road and go from my home to my workplace at the same time as everybody else, or also with everybody else. So Giveth is starting out by... This microphone's really quiet, don't you think?
I can hear you through the speakers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Giveth is really trying to change the way that we create and fund public goods, and it's starting by meeting nonprofits where they're at and bringing nonprofits into the Web3 space. Like a Web2 analog could be something like GoFundMe, except Giveth is really different from GoFundMe. It's like anybody can create a project and start raising funds for their projects, but there's no intermediaries or fees. The funds go directly from the donor to the project, and then the project can start using it for good work. It's not like GoFundMe where actually they're holding the funds, and there was this instance in Canada recently where actually they didn't want the funds to go to the project that they were donating to. It was the protesters in Canada. And so GoFundMe actually withheld those funds, and then they penalized the donors who were actually donating to support that project. So Giveth is like a Web3 alternative to this kind of system. And what's more than that is that we're actually trying to change the way that public goods are funding by eliminating the element of sacrifice. In order to fund public goods projects, you need volunteers who are working for the nonprofits to put in their time and effort because they care, not because there's actually money in that. And you also need donors who are providing the capital, who are giving to this because they care so much about those public goods projects that they want to give capital to it. So the first way in which we're doing that is with a program called Givebacks, where donors donate to public goods projects and they get actually paid with Give tokens. They get rewarded in Give tokens, which is the governance token of the Giveth DAO. So actually 100% of the funds that are donated go directly from the donor to the project, and the donor gets rewarded with governance over the platform and gets to be actually like an instrument and a part of the community in deciding the way that the platform unfolds and which new features are added and what's important to the community. So it's actually like a bottom-up donation platform that's run by the community, that's mainly focused on actually changing the way that public goods funding works so that we can bring also this DAO tooling and these DAO systems to nonprofits so they can become DAOs of their own. So there's
Right.
a lot more in there, but it'll take me forever to unpack it. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much in there, right? And I think that touches on two different topics that I think are really sort of fundamental to the way the space is evolving, right? One is this like, explore, exploit trade-off in like Web 2 versus in Web 3, right? Where because we are giving people stake in our projects, right? And that's the way they're rewarded. You actually like align incentives as your project matures, more so than in a traditional company, right? Where you start off trying to be really nice and attract users, and then eventually you run out of new users and you just want to exploit everyone, right? So you are aligning incentives a lot better. And then the next is chartalism, which I love talking about, but we don't have to get into it. But it's the concept of state-backed currency as like the reason state-backed currency or fiat currency has value is ultimately that people want to be part of that community. And the way that's worked historically is by state-backed currency being the unit of account by which you pay property taxes, right? And we have all these analogs to that now, right? Where it's like currencies are valuable because people want to be part of a community, and we're just like rebuilding public goods funding which traditionally public goods have been funded by states, through like effectively the same, like a sort of a generalization of chartalism, right?
Yeah, I think jumping off of that, like the alignment of incentives, the alignment of interests really is like donors who are using the platform actually become shareholders in the platform. They become part of the DAO, and then they have also a vested interest in how the DAO unfolds and if Giveth is successful in its mission. And it's like they get on board. They're not only just using this tool, they're like using this tool and getting immersed in the community so that we can actually continue to build and direct the way that Giveth evolves with the input of the users, with the input of the people who are using the platform.
Awesome. Sharfi, how are satellites involved in all of this?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sharfi, and I'm a co-founder of Gainforce, which is like rainforest, but with a G. Our mission at Gainforce is try to make to link donations to impact, because right now, if you're trying to donate to a nonprofit, you put your money to your nonprofit of your choice, and you have no idea where this money goes to. How much does a nonprofit take as a percentage of your donation? How much actually goes to the communities or the project that you're trying to fund, and also if it's actually making an impact. And at Gainforce, we really try to make sure that once you donate to our platform, the donation goes into an escrow account, and it's only released when we see measurable impact. And to go back to your question, we use satellite data as the first layer for forest protection projects to make sure that the forest canopy is actually being protected. And every month or every couple of months, if we detect that the forest canopy is being conserved, then we actually donate. We release a part of the donations to the communities, and it's a continuous type of funding as well. So it's every month or every couple of months. This way, we create different economic incentives for the communities on the ground, instead of having to work for their livelihoods by farming or cattle ranching. They can actually get paid to protect their home, and they get donations every month, and you can see it as a sort of income, and that's what Gainforce is.
Yeah, nice. So I mean, that's a major thread that we've touched on a bunch of times now, right? Is that like you can using Web3 native tools, because you have this degree of sort of situational awareness and granularity and verifiability, you can reach people directly where they are, right? And you're not going through this like giant transparent organization or giant opaque organization, but you can really like you're saying, put money in an escrow account, and it goes out to the actual people on the ground, right, protecting this plot of land. And if you see that this plot of land is being deforested, they just stop getting paid right away, right? So it's like automatic and granular, and you're like really giving that money to people and helping them do things other than deforesting for their livelihood.
Yeah, one of the things that blockchain is really great as is transparency, especially in terms of donation. And we also issue impact certificates in terms of what we call NFTs. And these impact certificates are related to on-ground data. So, going back to this whole transparency issues, all of the satellite data would be open source, stored in IPFS, for forever, so nobody could change the data or, claim that that the forest has already been deforested before the communities were even there. So, you just look at your wallet and you get a picture of the project site. So, if the project site is deforested, the image would change. That metadata, we also have metadata based on carbon stored, but also biodiversity metrics and how much that person has donated, and that changes. And so you really have this engagement and this transparency. Exactly, my money is going to the escrow account, and then it's going to the communities, and this is the impact that you see.
Awesome. Yeah, I love what a tight loop that is, right, in which you can like see and verify that impact, and it's great. Awesome. Nikos, I know are at the European Blockchain Observatory and at Rebate, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. please.
Thank you, Alan, for the invitation. My name is Nikos Kostopoulos. I'm representing the research team of the European Blockchain Observatory and Forum. It's a think tank officially supported by the European Commission. Our role, we have a dual role. The first one is to curate reports to understand the European blockchain ecosystem. As that, we measure the numbers, how many jobs, how many European startups, blockchain startups exist, and what's the real impact in the European economy. As you can understand, governments want data, facts, in order to make decisions and spend resources from the public budget. And at the same time, we are here to understand the European ecosystem and see how we can really support. Thank you for mentioning also my role as a co-founder of Rebaked. It's a crowdsourcing platform, mainly focusing on early stage projects that haven't launched yet. In bull markets, projects, they have a lot of resources and money to spend to find employees and also hire external consultants. This is not the case in bear markets right now. People have more free time to spend. They want to contribute to new projects, but as you can understand, when you have a token, you can distribute it through a bounty or through other mediums. It's pretty much like liquid salary if the token is listed. But if a token is not yet listed, there are other problems that we're trying to face and overcome.
Awesome. Perfect. So I wanted to ask a question and just sort of throw it out to whoever wants to answer. I think one of the major questions in this space right now is how to do governance other than just buy a token that people can buy, right? Because we don't want money to equal speech, right? We want speech and decision-making power to ideally represent some sort of stake in a community other than just like how much wealth have you put into it, right? Does anyone have a sort of perspective on that you'd like to share? Yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, I have a perspective to share on that for sure. I mean, so there are tokens that you can purchase, but then there's also like soul-bound tokens or reputation tokens that can be earned by having skin in the game, by being part of a DAO for a period of time, or by doing like certain qualitative actions. And there's also it's also interesting. There's a lot of work being done in like how to capture that value. It's like how do we capture skin in the game? How do we capture qualitative data and actually like translate that into tokens? So there's like a couple of great examples that are just off the top of my head. One is the praise system, which is developed and like iterating upon it by the Common Stack, where actually it uses a culture of gratitude to allocate tokens to people, allocate DAO tokens to people. And basically it looks like if somebody does something cool, if somebody does something you like, you can be like, praise this person, like praise all of these people for participating in a great panel at SBS. And then that will get quantified. Like that will go into a spreadsheet, and then quantifiers are looking at this data and giving it a score. And then that data, it's like the scores of each praise. It's like you have like a pot of funds, and it's like that pot of funds is distributed amongst the different scores. And so like everybody here who just got praised for that would get tokens that represent that. And then there's other awesome projects like Coordinate that are also doing kind of capturing this qualitative data and translating into tokens. And like it can actually be done. It can be done with transferable tokens that you could also buy, or with tokens that are reputation tokens, which are like non-transferable, and they just like represent your participation in the DAO. And I think that there's value to both. Like I think we need to work on systems that are rewarding all kinds of contributions, like rewarding skin in the game. It's rewarding people who provide capital, but also rewarding people who provide labor and expertise, and people who are like really invested in the mission of a particular DAO or a particular project.
100%. Awesome. I know, Nick, I think part of what you're doing also has to do with, not just like putting offsets on chain, but like differentiating between the like quality of different offsets, right? Which like require, it's the same question, right? That's sort of a governance or like higher level decision-making questions. How do you deal with it? Yeah,
I mean, this is a huge issue in the voluntary carbon market because, amongst the voluntary carbon market stakeholders, no one can agree on what is a high quality carbon credit. And so therefore, it's left to individual actors to say, okay, this is the bar I want to put. So, for instance, we know the instance with BCTs and NCTs. The bar was set at nature-based projects that have been issued by Vera, which is like the registry. But with regards to the kind of process to deciding that, like who gets to decide, and how do we know that these are the right people to decide upon that project? And it gets a bit muddy when you get mixed kind of like technocratic decision making with like democratic decision making, and then like. I think there's always the issue of kind of perception of the Web3, because like DAOs and so forth, we're quite familiar with them. But when I say DAO to a project developer in the Amazon, they have no idea what it means. And so the more kind of complex the decision-making process can be, although it's Web3 and it's transparent for us, it doesn't mean it's transparent for them. And we have to be able to kind of communicate in a language that other people understand in layman terms. And that's why I really like your model, because it's so simple, right? It's direct, and you see impact directly. And I think that's something that the kind of voluntary carbon market hasn't gotten to yet. And we haven't been able to communicate our added value to all of the different stakeholders yet. And I'm looking forward to that being, soon forthcoming.
Thank you. So thank you for the shout out. So at Gainforce, we put the community first, and so they're actually the ones that get the governance tokens that get to dictate the future of our platform. So instead of putting in money, it's because I'm protecting the rainforest and I'm doing good work that I'm getting the governance tokens to dictate how Gainforce will go in the future.
That's really powerful. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's something that's like, okay, if you have all these different actors playing different roles in your ecosystem, right, you really have this ability to transparently and verifiably like reward people over time for doing different types of things, right? And like, for example, protecting the forest,
Yep.
like directly. Do you run into that same sort of set of issues, right? When you're like talking to people on the ground, presumably they when you tell them they're going to get a governance token, how does that conversation go?
So our governance token hasn't actually started yet.
Sure, yeah. But it's the plan, yeah.
Well, we see it as a way to empower them to be able to dictate, because this is their new source of income, and they need to be able to say, it's a way to tell them, hey, you have a voice, and you have it's a way of empowerment. Is how I would put it. Lead
with the fact that they're going to get money that they can use. And then the governance token sort of comes in as part of being in the system. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I've actually had this conversation with a few local communities in Peru and Ecuador, and also some indigenous communities in Peru and Ecuador. And it really has been quite interesting to just see the degree to which they just don't care about the medium. And I think that this is a conversation that we really need to have within spaces like this, taking a few steps backward and asking ourselves okay, a governance token, does everybody need to participate in governance? Not really. And so same with the way that you interact with the beneficiaries of a lot of these projects. To us, we're also community first. So for us, it's really, okay, what are the ways that they want to use this money in the first place? And for the most part, they want to use it to start their own businesses so that they stop relying on donations in the first place and start actually thriving businesses that are more in line with the regenerative practices that they already have been doing for many years. So the way that they think about farming, the way that they think about ecotourism is very different than the way we perceive these kinds of things, and they have very clear ideas of what kinds of businesses they want to run. So really for us, it's can we fund that? Absolutely. And then the other bit of it is sort of saying, okay, well, how are they going to actually leverage these tokens? It's not that the infrastructure is really ready for this. In fact, in many countries, the regulation isn't there, the on-ramp, off-ramp isn't there. And so how do you actually translate that into value? And very often what we have found is there is benefit to aligning ourselves with some kind of nonprofit or registered entity that then can be able to be a conduit, and then actually taking their structures and saying, okay, well, you've been a nonprofit for X amount of years, and historically speaking, obviously there's a trust issue with a lot of nonprofits, but now there's a way for us to sort of bring you into this culture of transparency, and there are a lot of nonprofit organizations that are very open to that. So I think maybe sometimes we are very hyper focused on the impact that we're trying to achieve, but very often there's a conversation that has to be had on the foundational reason as to why governance is important in the first place, who governance is even for, and also who the financial instruments are for, and what they're intended to fund, and how that funding is actually going to reach them and be returned in in some kind of social ROI, right? So I think those conversations are really the ones that motivated us to make the decisions we've made, and also that I think just need to be held in more open spaces, because I think the idea that everybody needs to be included in the governance, for me, is like probably something that maybe holds a lot of our projects back.
Yeah, 100%. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? That you have to like meet people where they are, right? There's a book I love to plug whenever I get the chance, which is a sociology book called Seen Like a State, which was written in the late 90s, which is the history in the mostly 20th century of people coming in at like government scales and just like saying I have the plan and just like imposing that on whatever the like local system is, and it just like fails miserably, right? And so I totally get what you're saying, that you have to like figure out what people actually need, and like you have some ideas on how to do things better, but you ultimately like you need to.
We had an issue once where people were asking like why there was a helicopter situation in our plan, like we needed to fund a helicopter, and people were like, what, like, why would you direct money toward that? But actually, we're working with a community that's so remote that there's no road or anything to get them there. So they have two choices, either a boat or a helicopter to get actual cash, which then they take back to their community, and then it has like a very liquid economy there. So the boat is not an option because most of the time, like the water tide changes, and so it can get very complicated. The journey can extend by X amount of days. They might get stranded or stuck or whatever. So actually, the helicopter is the most trusted way to get to and from where they can get cash. So we're going to fund a helicopter. Like, but I think the culture of transparency is really important in that domain of saying, like, here's why you're funding this and where that comes from. And it's okay to not vilify certain decisions that organizations have to make in order to make sure that the impact actually gets achieved.
Need a cash copter. Yeah, Lauren.
Yeah, I was, in this question of like, who needs governance? It's like a really important question, and I think is something that's really an opportunity that we have in Web3, that we can create like different types of tokens or like different like realms of governance. Like we can have reputation tokens that allocated to contributors to a project who are there with seniority and time, and then we can have like tokens that anybody can buy on the open market who then have like skin in the game in a financial sense. And it's like those tokens can be used to govern different things. Like at Giveth, we have a reputation DAO, which is exactly this. Like contributors who are there for a period of 3 months working full time are eligible to receive these tokens. And then those tokens are used to vote on people's role proposals. Like when new people are being hired, we look at their role proposals and we vote on like, yeah, let's let this person should have a role, et cetera, which like isn't exactly like it isn't something that like the broader community of Give token holders might be interested in. But then we have a conviction voting DAO that governs a pot of funds in Give tokens. So Give token holders have skin in the game. They want to know like how those Give tokens are being used. If they're being used to things that are just dumping the Give tokens or decreasing the price, then it affects also those people who are holding Give tokens. So it's like we can use not only like we can use different ways of issuing tokens for different levels of expertise, and we can also use like different systems of voting that are like made possible in Web3, things like quadratic voting or things like conviction voting. It's like all of these different styles of voting that aren't just like one token, one vote, or even one person, one vote. They're actually like taking in other factors, like instead of just like how much tokens you have or yes, no decisions, it's like maybe you could signal preference to multiple different proposals. And that's how conviction voting works. I think there's there's different ways of issuing tokens, different ways of creating voting structures, and like in Web3 we can build all of these systems and then apply them also on the ground with like projects who are working on the ground in like ways that like suit them. We can also use delegation. Like people who are working on one thing can decide to delegate their token to people that they think would vote in line with their values. And there's a ton of opportunity here, yeah.
I think you had a thought, and then I wanted to come back to Nikos and Alex too.
I totally agree, and I just wanted to make one point on transparency, because I think that the example you used had that same instance, was that same example happened 15 years ago with an NGO, and then some News Corp found out that some anti-international development News Corp found out that an NGO had flown a helicopter. Then there would be uproar. The NGO would have gone, completely bankrupt. But that just demonstrates the importance of transparency in the governance processes, and that's why Web3 can actually do it. So you think about that's the advantage to these NGOs, because all of a sudden they can take those decisions that are based on pragmatism, on effectiveness, and they can actually do so in a transparent way without kind of delegitimizing their operations. I think that's a really good example.
Because it's not just like the journalist finds the receipt for the helicopter.
Exactly.
It's like the journalist finds like the forum where you like figure out why you actually
and the
need
NGO
it.
doesn't have a comms department. They don't have anything to defend themselves. So all of a sudden they have like a complete traceability, transparency right to the source. This is why we took that decision, and this was the governance process.
They explained it in our Discord. It's great.
Yeah, sometimes you need a cash copter, but you should document it. Yeah. Do you have thought? I mean, sort of reactions to all of this because you work a lot on DAO tooling, right?
Yes, I have spent quite a lot of time researching governance tokens, and I want to emphasize on 3 core benefits. The first one is helps a project to decentralize faster. This is very important also from a legal perspective, because regulators, if they see a very centralized project, it's going to be the first that they are going to attack. So this is something to also safeguard the founders and the first members of a DAO or a community. The second one, it helps to build relationships. In crypto, we have a very terrible culture. When things going really well and token is going up, everyone is celebrating with you. But when the token starts, declining, everyone is against the team. The developer has to fix them. Building together or even engaging together with the community, it helps to pass those periods that projects are in crisis, that the token is declining, and helps to build true communities. Before I used to work at Harmony Protocol, and we had a community reward program, and I can say that most of those developers who have been part of this developer program have been the most important advocates for Harmony, and now some of them, they are even working for Harmony Protocol team. And the last perspective, I used to believe that also engaging so many people, it might help for a product to deliver faster. But after hearing also Kevin discussing about the delays in decision making for DAOs, I'm not anymore very sure if this is happening, but definitely helps to gather feedback from many people and improve the product. I just want to finalize with saying that before, when it comes to sustainability and innovation, we had hedge funds, venture capitals investing, and their goal has been profit. Now Web3 has brought different actors. We have initial coin offerings, not anymore, but similar structures. We have smaller players, but still the motivation is going to be profit. And in crypto, and a lot of people who are working with sustainability, they are facing profit with a negative manner. It's not necessarily negative, and I still believe that if we give incentives that are translated to profit long term, is going to be the most reliable source of keep pushing and having better results.
Awesome. Alex, I wanted to. I know you do a lot of like work with traditional ESG, right? And I was wondering sort of how your thoughts, what your thoughts are, and how this sort of relates to that interface, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the most effective DAOs that I've seen so far have all been centralized, which is obviously the opposite of what it's supposed to be. And any truly decentralized DAOs at this point seem to be a bit like anarchy. You get in there, proposals can't get passed, there's not enough participation. So I think there's a lot of really cool theoretical ways to run a DAO, and a lot of really interesting theories about how to get there. One of the more interesting ones that I've seen so far is a lot of what you guys were talking about, but the participation-based tokens, but they actually have an expiry to them. So you have to be actively doing things. You can't just accrue a ton of tokens, get a ton of influence, but it's just like, what have you done for me lately, kind of? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really interesting model, and I'd love to see it applied in a lot of these ways. And I know there's, from a traditional sense, right, everything is centralized now. So applying a DAO model, I think, can really change a lot of how people approach these types of issues, particularly when you're dealing with research, because they have sort of a hybrid model in a sense, right? You have an organization that's an overarching named organization, a research organization that has participants from all over the world who have other jobs in other universities or other research organizations as well. So it's kind of like a hybrid DAO structure. And I think learning from those types of controls can be applied to decentralized organizations now and benefit them.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. We have a lot of people on the panel, so we're slightly over time. So I think we're gonna cut it there. But thank you all for coming, and thank you to Nick, Lucia, Alex, Lauren, Sharfi, and Nikos for your thoughts.
Thank you.